Hi, my name is Greg Brightville, and I'm going to talk to you about body language. Now, here's the thing. Body language is just as essential in communication as our voices. And in previous videos, you learned about speech writing and how to construct a speech, both a written speech or even an on-the-fly impromptu speech. And I've also talked to you about paralanguage and the inflection of your voice. But now I want you to take a moment and think about body and how your body communicates to people. Because we use our body language all the time. We use our body language even when we're not speaking to communicate to people. Like when you're upset, you may not say, "I'm upset," but your body language tells people. And so as a public speaker, I want you to think about body language in two ways. One, how you interpret other people's body language. And how do you use body language as a tool to connect to somebody, understanding what they're saying to you? Because often when you're speaking, they're listening, but that doesn't mean that you're not listening to their body language. And the second thing is understanding your body language. And what is your body saying? Is it strengthening your message? Is it weakening your message? Or is it even completely going against your message? So with that, I want you to think. And I have this workshop set up different, and I've got a little battle station that you can't really see. And I'm showing my whole body because I want you to look at me and to analyze my body language as I speak. And so with that being said, pay attention to what I do. So I want to ask you, here's a question. Do you pay attention to body language? Do you? Okay, here's a game. I want you to pause and answer some questions. You see a person and you ask them a question and they do this gesture. What are you going to do? You're going to keep asking questions? When I do this, maybe with a look on my face, what is my body telling you? The interesting thing is what I'm doing, this is a self-soothing technique. It feels good to rub my forehead. It feels good, anywhere. I rub my wrists. Sometimes I get a little tendonitis. And so when I'm anxious and a little nervous, I do this. And so that tells you that I'm anxious. And so if you're speaking or if you're talking to a person and they do this, you're probably not going to want to ask them another question. You're probably going to think there's something bothering them. Let's do another one. Which person is more interesting or more interested in talking? The one on the left or the one on the right? What do you think? The one on the left, their arms are open. The one on the right, a little bit more closed. Now, something that I think is really important is that often the body serves as a metaphor for the mind. And so in our body language, we can sometimes look at it and understand what's going on in someone's head, even when the voice says something else. And so this, not necessarily that they're guarded off, but that they're uncomfortable. They're hugging themselves. They're holding themselves. This feels good, especially if I'm anxious. But it also sends a message outwardly to people that I really probably don't want to talk. Whereas if you see somebody with their arms open, you're more likely to engage with them. Let's do another one. Who is the middle person more interested in talking to? Person on the left, person A, or person B, who's on the right? You see, in body language, when we are interested in talking to someone, we actually turn and face them. And this is actually a thing for you to use as a speaker. When you talk to somebody, if you face them fully, more likely than not, they're going to also mirror your behavior and face you. Because when we're interested and engaged to a person, we talk to them almost face on. If you're not interested in someone, again, the body is a metaphor for the mind and acts in that way. Have you ever thought of it, to turn your back on a person when you don't want to, when you don't like them or talk to them? We do that when we're communicating as well. So if I turn away from someone, that sends a nonverbal body language message. Even if I'm saying, I really like you, my body is saying something different than my voice. But when you think of body language and when you think of your whole body, think of everything from top to bottom. If you're speaking, you have to think of your whole body. Because when we're interpreting body language, whether we realize it or not, we are looking at the whole person, the whole picture. When I was in grad school, I had an instructor, and it was for a counseling techniques class. And we would record each other in videos, and we put them on VHS because, I don't know, that's what they had. Which this was also in like the late 2000s, which very hard to find VHSs. But we recorded on VHS, and then we would watch it in front of the class. And I had recorded a session with one of my classmates, and we would practice counseling techniques. And my classmate was saying how happy he was, how great everything was, how wonderful things were. And I went with that, and all I was hearing was his voice. I was not listening to what his body was telling me. And my instructor paused the video and said, Greg, what do you think? And I responded, this person's happy. And he said, notice their hand. Do you see they've clenched it? They were holding onto the chair tightly. They're sitting in an uncomfortable way. They're uncomfortable. Their foot is tensed. And then the instructor asked the student, were you happy? And the student said, no. If I was actually understanding that person and seeing the whole picture, I would have understood not only what their voice was saying, but that their voice was actually different than their body. And this is important for you as a speaker, because often you're going to be saying something, and if you're not seeing the whole picture of yourself and your body language, your body could be tattling on you, saying, you are lying. Or you're uncomfortable. I see this quite a bit when I'm watching people speak, that their face or their body does not match what the words they're saying. Let's say they're saying, I'm so excited to be here today. I'm so glad to meet you. I'm really passionate about this, and you all are wonderful people. Pause, go back, and rewatch what I just did. Did you notice what I was doing with my fists? I'm so excited to meet you. What does this normally mean? Clenched fist. Probably. That's not usually a good sign. And what if instead I said this? I'm so glad to meet you. I'm so excited that you're here. I'm really excited to not only share with you what I know, but to hear from you. What did my body just say then? Did my face say something? Take my glasses so you can see. Did my eyebrows, my smile, my hands were open gesture. I grabbed my heart, put out my hand. If I'm going to be an effective public speaker, and just speaking in general, it's about realizing that my body and my voice have to be saying the same thing to effectively communicate my message. Because if my voice and my body are not saying the same thing, maybe consciously or also subconsciously, the receiver is going to pick up on that. So let's go through some tips. So So the first thing that I want you to realize when we're talking about body language is your eyes. So start with your eyes. Think about eyes. Your eyes are so important because when you look at someone, they look back. Eyes are powerful. That's the same thing as where my eyes are pointed. If I look up like this and I'm in a presentation, people will follow my gaze. If someone's not paying attention and I look them in the eyes, it's going to pull them back in. And it builds a connection. In our culture, eye contact is very important. If I'm not looking you in the eyes, if I'm looking at my phone while I'm speaking to you, what does that send you as a message? It also maintains interest. So when I want to get someone's interest, I look them in the eyes. Pulls them in. If you are sitting in a meeting, play this game. Watch the speaker, see who they're looking to. Watch as their eyes hit a person and watch that person's reaction. That person, whether subconsciously or consciously, if they're not paying attention, even if they're watching, they'll change their body language to align. Like, yes, I'm paying attention. Eyes are important. And it maintains that connection and it builds that interest. And as a receiver, when somebody looks me in the eye when I'm speaking to them, that means that they're invested, interested in what I'm saying, that they're there with me. The next thing is eye contact communicates confidence. If I'm speaking to you and I'm looking down like this, and I'll try not to change my other facial features just so it's neutral, but most likely it's going to be looking very differently with a frown. Yeah, I think public speaking is really useful, and I'm excited that you're here. Yeah, I think public speaking is really useful, and I'm excited that you're here. My message changed by how my eyes were pointed. And by looking at you in the eye, I'm showing confidence in what I'm saying. Now, if you're doing this virtual, like right now I am, and you're on a webcam meeting, look at the webcam eye, because that way people see you. It's if you've never felt comfortable looking people in their eye, look at their eye color. Just use that. It's like a game you can play. You're going to really be able to be more comfortable in looking people in the eye once you kind of make it a game. The next thing I want you to think about is, what is your body saying? And how is your body communicating your message? And is it matching what you wanted to say? So be situationally aware. Being situationally aware means recognizing that the situation, the audience, the content, all of this matters in shaping how your body communicates things. If I'm speaking to you at a ceremony, my body's going to be a certain way. But if I'm speaking at an event where I'm trying to advocate or something that I'm passionate about, LGBT rights, if I'm saying we need to fight for LGBT rights of our young people, we need to advocate for them, being situationally aware means I know how to change the body language that I'm using so that the tone of my body language matches the occasion and the message I am trying to send to you. Your body language should also be aligned with what your mouth is saying. If I say to you, I'm so happy today because I love what I do and I love speaking to you. What if I change my message? I'm so happy today because I love my job and I love speaking to you. Did you notice how my body language and the tone and the message it was sending the second time was not matched with what I was trying to communicate? And based on the change in my body language, completely changed the message that I was giving you. Same words, completely different message. The next thing, and this is going to require all body language, you're going to have to practice this. But let's see if I get closer. So think of your face. And so practice your face and go stand in front of a mirror and practice, smile, okay, empathy, maybe a side grin, active listening, interest. and learn your body, learn your face, because we don't often see our face when we're speaking. You have to practice your face, because what you want to realize is that your face sends a very important message. So based on your face, if you have, if certain features, based on how you hold your face, can actually make an impact on if people like you. Are you empathetic? When you're speaking, you're going to have to change your face and your body language to match your message. So if I'm talking and I'm talking about a very solemn thing, so if I'm sharing a story about a friend that passed away and I'm speaking at a eulogy, or I'm talking about, let's say, a sad experience that I had, I'm going to want to be confident in how my body and how my face works so that I know how to change it. Because often when you're speaking and you're nervous, you're going to forget about your face and your body language, and it's going to not match. And I see that a lot with individuals that are really anxious, where they'll talk like this and they're really very neutral and they don't know what to do, or that they look uncomfortable because they are uncomfortable. And because of that, it sends a message where they're not as comfortable in what they're saying. And so I'm interpreting that differently. And if you're an individual that has what they often call RBF, resting bad word face, these people, usually the ones that I know that say that they have that, are usually the most loving, wonderful, kind-hearted people ever. But be aware of how your face is interpreted and how your facial characteristics as they sit. A good way to practice is find your face neutral. So stand in front of a mirror and find that neutral place that you're comfortable going to. Mine's usually like an upward lift, slight lift on the lips, it's a tiny bit of an eyebrow lift. And from there, I can go anywhere, just like any other body movements. Sad. Happy. Excited. You have to know where your foundational face is that you want to start when you're speaking. Because from there, you'll go, and that way you can transition to matching your face to your message. The next is realizing that your face adds so much value to the emotional message that you're sending. If you're trying to convince, let's say, with that pathos, that emotion we talked about, we did last module, pathos, I'm trying to show emotion. And if I can take my face and match the emotion that I'm using verbally, it makes a much more powerful and cohesive message that's going to be even better interpreted and received, and even more possibly influential to my listener. And then finally, your face can help you also communicate interest in something. Interest in what I'm saying, but also interest in what somebody else is saying. And so if somebody's asking me a question, or if somebody's telling me something and I'm speaking and I want them to know that I'm listening, I may change my face and adjust it. So it's important to know what your face is doing. And this takes practice. So go find a mirror, like I've got one right here, and practice your facial expressions. Next, eye contact. Eye contact is so important when you're talking about active listening. When I look at you, it means I'm listening and paying attention. Also, use a head nodding. Let's say you have an audience, even if they're far away from you, or even close up and you're in a small meeting, or even one-on-one. When we hear somebody and when we're trying to show them that we're listening, we often nod subconsciously. This is another fun activity. You're in the meeting, watch people's nodding. The speaker looks at a person, says something. Even if the message is not directly towards them, the person will nod. In fact, sometimes when we really want people to know, we nod even bigger. Also leaning in. So if you're speaking to someone and you want them to know, just leaning in. And then the torso direction. So if somebody speaks to you or you're speaking to someone, let's say I have something I want to say to you, I will turn towards you. Your torso is important. This sends a big message. Scrolling the wrong way. Next, your hands. Hands and face, in my opinion, are the most important aspect of body language. The face says so much, and the hands do too. In fact, sometimes the hands can say so much more. See, I often find that hands and how we use them is something that people don't know how to use. They don't know what to do. They feel uncomfortable. They almost hide their hands. But when used right, the hands can do so much. Look at great speakers. Martin Luther King, when he was speaking and he said, "Let freedom ring," he put his hands up like bells. How powerful. Barack Obama, when he says, President Obama was like, "I'm excited to have you here," he does this hugging motion. Hands are so powerful. But you need to know what you're doing. And so, for example, like understanding the point versus the gesture. To point is it's like an arrow straight at you. And it can be very powerful when needed to use. So if I'm saying I have a message for you, and I'm trying to connect with each person individually. But if I say I have a message for you, this is one thing. I have a message for you. This is something else. The gesture versus the point. I personally like the gesture because I think this is like, it's like giving you a gift. The open hand versus the clenched fist. Open hand shows trust. It usually shows confidence, vulnerability, comfort. And my hands are open because I'm comfortable. I trust you. It's showing you my hands are open. And so sometimes I may use this gesture if I'm trying to connect with people, trying to bring people together. Open hand is powerful. The fist, and sometimes we do fist and we don't mean it. The clenching of muscles, even the face. So when somebody's clenching their jaw, that usually sends a message. But this is fighting, action. If I'm trying to say we need to group together and together we will fight for whatever. So I'm using multiple things and then sending a message. Body language is often very performative. But once you kind of get the hang of it, it becomes second nature. Next, palm up versus palm down. Palm up, palm down. Palm up, I like this because it pulls people up to you. But sometimes you may want to help slow things down. So it's like, let's calm down versus let's get up. Let's move. So understand how this can be interpreted different than this. You are such a wonderful audience. You are such a great group of people. You're such a wonderful audience. You're such a great group of people. My message completely changed based on the direction of my palms. And then the pushing away versus pulling in. I push you away when if I have to send you an idea, I have a vision and I'm pushing it. Again, if anything, you remember this is that the body acts as a metaphor for the mind. So when I'm saying I'm sending you an idea, I'm metaphorically, my body is acting as if I'm pushing this idea out to you. But then if I want to pull people in, if I say, come work with me, come join me. It's important. And how you're using this sends a very important message with your hands. The next thing is where you stand and how you stand. So standing is really important. And often this is the hard thing. People don't like standing in front of people. I mean, we do it all the time, but like public speaking where all eyes are on me, we feel very vulnerable. In fact, usually the thing that I see is several things. One, hands across. Again, this is self-comforting. They're hugging themselves. It feels good. And I can tell somebody's anxious when they're speaking. The hands in pockets. And the problem with the hands in pockets is then you lose your hands. That's a huge portion of how you can communicate. And then this is awkward. The Superman or Superwoman or whatever, this one I don't usually like because this overly exerts confidence, almost to a cockiness. And also when people usually do this, they gyrate their hips forward and back, which is usually not a very appealing stance. The rockers, this is self-soothing, so I can tell they're nervous. The Adonis pose, this one I often fall into just because it's comfortable, but sometimes that comfortable stance is comforting to you because you're a little nervous, but also sometimes a little cockiness too. And my personal favorite is the fig leaf or the Adam and Eve, the hand over the groin. This one is because we're uncomfortable, very uncomfortable, and usually because we feel vulnerable. Okay, we are animals. Evolution and our instincts are throughout us. We cover our groin because we feel vulnerable. We're protecting ourselves. This is actually a humanistic behavior. And so when you're doing this, you feel vulnerable, unsafe. And so you're covering your vulnerable areas. And then also this becomes an issue if you're trying to use your hands because the gestures are all going back and very muted. Usually you're also putting your shoulders forward in this. So instead, practice your stance. A good stance is stand, pause the video, or stand up while you're listening to me. Stand behind your chair. Stretch, get ready. Put your feet about shoulder width apart. Push your shoulders back. You want this. Confidence. Speaking. I'm telling you something. I'm confident in what I'm saying, and I need to show you through my body language that I'm confident in the words that I'm saying. Shoulders back. Arms. You have many options. One, right at your side. You can gesture. You can also hold them right here. Open-handed a little bit. You can have your fingers touching together a little bit. You can also do this. This is fine. Try to avoid this because, again, this prevents you from using your hands for this. I often do this. I call this the cup. And from this, you can do anything you need with your hands. And it sends a message. And you as a speaker, you want to have a positive message if you're about to say something important. The final thing, not the final thing, one of the last things I want you to think about is strategic eye contact. And how you do that is it's you kind of like go back and forth. And it recognizes the fact that, as I talked about earlier, when you look in somebody's direction, they're pulled back in. And if you're talking to a large audience, often you're not even looking at a specific person, but you're looking at a group of people and you want to keep their attention. So what I'll do is I look in my notes and I look down notes, up at an area, finish a statement, down, read. And then I say another statement and then I look down again and I'm going to finish my statement. And I keep looking and I just keep looking and I talk and talk and talk and I keep talking. And then as you get good at it, if you know your speech, you're just going to keep going back and forth. And as you're looking at the different groups, you're pulling them back in. Everybody's going to feel like you're looking at them, when really you're just looking at a broad area, like a spotlight on a crowd. And this is a really great tool to practice your eye engagement because through this, you're going to, it almost creates it like a habit. Another thing that I want you to keep in mind is body language and terms that are offensive. So just know some body language, some hand symbols, some actions are very disrespectful and can be very problematic and rude, disrespectful, distracting to your audience. So explore if that does that have a hidden message. So if you're trying to use your body in a certain way, does this gesture have a racial, cultural, discriminatory meaning? Is there another gesture that you could use? So instead of giving the A-OK, give the thumbs up, or I give this, I call it fireworks, like that. And then also realizing intent versus impact. So your intent may not be to discriminate or to make somebody feel bad or to alienate a person, but that doesn't mean that your impact is not. And just like how words can have different intent versus impact, actions and body language do too. And then finally, practice the mirroring technique. And so mirroring means recognizing other people's body language and using that to your advantage. As a speaker, I'm going to want to connect with people. I also probably may want to mirror people that I know they like. So if I'm speaking after somebody that's really very important and a leader in the field, I'm going to watch their body language and copy because the people like that person. They're going to like me more. So look at their posture, how they use their hands, how they distance themselves. If you're talking to a person one-on-one and you're speaking and trying to convince them, how far are they standing from you? How do they sit? How do they stand? Often when we like people, families and friends and significant others and coworkers, we mirror their body language. And that's a sign that we both like them. And if you want to see if somebody likes what you're saying, see if their body language is mirroring yours. That's going to tell you a lot. And so hopefully you've enjoyed this. Hopefully you've learned a lot. I cannot say this enough. You have to understand what your body is saying before you even think about what your mouth is saying, because if you don't understand the hidden message that your body is saying, it can defeat your entire message. And so as a public speaker, just practice. This is all a part of the practice that you need to do. A good tip for you is practice body movements that you like using and almost put them in a tool belt where as you're speaking, you can pull them out. So like the Barack Obama hug, I use this all the time. This is one of my go-tos. And so I only really use about 10, 20, maybe 30 body language movements. But as I practice them, I become more confident in them and I use them more and more. And so go on YouTube, listen to people, watch their body language, see what they do, copy it, practice it, and use it in your own speaking. And you're going to be so happy you did. So thanks again for listening, and I hope you enjoy this video, and I'll see you in the next one.